My name is Ivan Varai Santos. I am currently the department chair of our Ethnic Studies department. I'm also the coordinator for the Ethnic Studies and Social Justice Academy. Within those two roles, I teach Asian American Studies. I teach Filipino Heritage Studies, which is now called Filipinx Heritage Studies. And I also teach U.S. History, Econ, and Government within the Ethnic Studies and Social Justice Academy. I want to go ahead and share with you a few things very specifically about ethnic studies education. First and foremost, at James Logan High School, we are still the longest standing ethnic studies department in the nation at the high school level. I believe we still are the only high school that has a full department that offers upwards of 10 different courses for our students. And so the biggest parts, the biggest concepts that we try to educate our students in and get them to understand within our discipline is a holistic humanization, right? We want to make sure that the education that students are getting in any of our courses is a humanizing, that it centers them, that it creates a situation in which the students are valued much more than the content that itself. Because at the end of the day, we're not necessarily about just teaching the content, but we're serving students. Right? We're trying to create fully realized human beings. And so through that humanizing aspect of our curriculum, we also want to be able to develop their relationship with education and to strengthen that education, that relationship with education so that they become lifelong learners, right? And so hopefully with their love for education and learning, that they develop that critical consciousness that allows them to understand the things that are going on around them, obviously through taking a look at the history that they get from our social science courses, and also taking a look at the written word and the culture that they would be getting from our English language arts classes. And so hopefully the idea is that they become agents of positive social change, right? Because it is taught with an ethnic studies and social justice perspective. It definitely brings in approaches from a bunch of different disciplines. We bring in the arts, we bring in sociology and psychology, right? Even anthropology. So we take a look at the education and we offer a more well-rounded view of education for our students. And before I go on to the next piece and talking a lot more about our major concepts and principles that we try to provide for our students, I'm going to go ahead and play this video that clearly represents our ethnic studies department. They actually fought for.
It's a sacred space, a place of solidarity, self-empowerment, and self-love.
Equity,
truth,
exploring identity, social justice, and current events.
transformative,
diversity and inclusion,
love,
grace,
decolonize,
bringing forward the narratives of people of color,
how to be responsive to the world around them critically, and empowerment through social justice advocated curriculum.
It's important for young people to find out the history of their families, find out the history of their people. And if we look at our current situation, if we focus on what's really going on, that we as a community, we as people can come together and make the change ourselves.
I am ethnic studies.
I am ethnic studies.
I am ethnic studies.
I'm ethnic studies.
I am 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 ethnic studies.
And so with regards to the education and the pedagogy that we offer, we're not about the traditional form of education by any means. We definitely like to push the envelope and really try to give our students an approach to education that allows them to put the concepts and the theory into action, right? We definitely want to get them to know and understand what praxis is. Traditionally, with a whole lot of schooling, whether you're taking a look at, social science or even English, A lot of the traditional forms of education is that the old school banking type of education that the students read, they listen, they memorize, and then they regurgitate it. With what we do within the Ethnic Studies and Social Justice Academy, we really try to get the students to understand how to be critical thinkers, but at the same time, problem solvers. A lot of our tests aren't, your written tests. They're not fill in the bubble Scantron tests, but they're more so project based. Right? We definitely allow our students to take a look at a lot of different issues and concepts and problems in the world, and really try to imagine different kinds of solutions rather than just memorizing dates and names. We definitely allow them to act upon what they learn. Right? And so these are the guiding principles, values, and outcomes of all ethnic studies and social justice education. Right, we definitely want to cultivate community, celebrate the narratives of communities of color and their ancestry. Like I was saying earlier, we want to center and place high value on the knowledge that comes from the families and the ancestry. Right, we want to give respect to every single person and every single belief system that comes through our classroom. So students are able to connect with one another, not only through their own experiences, but through their past and through their ancestry, but also taking a look at movements that struggle for social justice, right? To really understand different communities, different cultures, so we can really understand what it means to be a part of a real democracy. And so in our coursework, we definitely challenge and critique all the things that have happened all throughout history. We want to decolonize our education and really move past the idea that you have to assimilate to a very specific identity in this country, but more so, we want to make sure that the students, their families, and their community are centered in their experience. So we definitely critique a lot of the isms that are there in society. We critique a lot of the ills. We critique a lot of the mistakes that our communities might have made in the past, and conceptualize and really try to imagine new possibilities for our students, their families, and their community at large.
So with regard to Filipinx Heritage Studies, it is a semester-long class. It meets all UC A through G requirements, specifically for our electives. It also does meet James Logan High School's Ethnic Studies graduation requirement. This is the first year we're actually offering it to 9th and 10th graders as a whole. We are also shortening Filipinx Heritage Studies from a year-long class to a semester to better fit the schedules for 9th and 10th graders who don't necessarily have much room in their schedules to go ahead and take this course and meet the ethnic studies requirement earlier in their academic career at Logan. So I've gone over the guiding values and principles and outcomes of ethnic studies already. I've gone over the 7 C's, which basically are the guidelines and the framework for us to be able to create a curriculum for our students to both humanize them, to humanize education, and at the same time to build critical consciousness so that we as a whole can help understand the situation that a lot of our students and their families find themselves in here in the United States today. And so with regards to the course of study, a whole lot of the beginning of the semester really looks into each student's identity, right? Who are you? Where are you from? Where's your family from? What experiences have you and your family shared, so that we can build and create more of a supportive community so that all students in the class are supported as learners before we go into a deeper look at the history. And so the next unit will focus on the history of the Philippine culture, heritage, and how it's affected by centuries of occupation by both Spanish and the United States, even the period in which the Japanese had taken control of the Philippines and what that had done to the history of the Philippines and the Filipino people. Furthermore, our next unit, taking a look at oppression breeds resistance, resistance breeds revolution. We definitely will take a look at the revolution of 1896 so that the students know and understand that the people have a history of fighting against oppression, fighting against corruption in the government, and how it still connects to experiences of the Philippines today, as well as the experiences of Filipinos in the United States of America, right? And so taking a more critical look at the history and the special relationship that the United States has had with the Philippines and the Filipino people, we're definitely going to take a look at the relationship that started as early as 1899, continuing up until today, right? U.S. imperialism and the Filipinx diaspora will really study the effects that U.S. occupation in the Philippines and also U.S. support of the presidencies from the 1940s up until now have changed the Philippine economy, but at the same time have affected the lives of Filipinos and Filipino Americans here in the United States today. And so with regards to the rounding off the semester with identity, right, the Trust Your Struggle, Becoming American will definitely allow students to critically analyze their own experiences living in the United States, right? So they're definitely going to be taking a look at their own experiences, the experiences of their friends, and especially the more recent history of their families, maybe reasons why families chose to immigrate here to the United States, but really, really taking a look so that they can understand the situation that they're in and how to make better choices to not only respect what their family members and their community has been through in the past, but also to help make positive changes, not only for themselves, their families, but for the community at large. All right. And lastly, the grading breakdown, the scale itself is pretty self-explanatory. It's your normal A through F scale. I rarely in my classes in Filipinx Heritage Studies have anyone lower than a D. You really have to put in effort to get something lower than a C in my class. It functions as a community. No student ever has to work alone. They will be working with at least one person, if not a whole group, the entire semester. If you look at the breakdown right here, formative assessments is classwork, homework, and other small assignments that we're going to be having week to week. Summative assessments are more so their tests, their projects, and their final, right? And the process grade is our participation day to day as we go through the curriculum. All right, and so attendance and behavior, late work, it's all pretty much standard. Attendance definitely will allow students to go ahead and make up any work that they missed during their excused absences. Behavior is pretty much the same as we've gone over earlier in the school year in the student handbook. With regards to late work, it says here any work will be accepted late for partial credit. I've actually just changed that in the beginning of the school year, as I found out that a whole lot of our students are still kind of transitioning from virtual learning to in-person learning, as more of a cushion for them to go ahead and allow themselves to handle that transition, the anxieties and fears of still being in-person learning during this pandemic. And so any work that they turn in late is going to be graded for full credit as long as they complete everything that's expected. It says for an extension on major projects, please reach out. Late submission of a project will result in the grade being lowered. On those projects, especially since most of these projects are going to be either coming from a pair or a group, I may be taking points off, especially if a student turning in their portion of the project late affects the grade of the larger group, right? And so I won't necessarily take points off of that whole group, but more so the individual that is turning in their work late or has some sort of delay without any pertinent excuse, right? And so that pretty much does it for Filipinx Heritage Studies. If there aren't any questions or concerns, you can definitely email me at isantos@nhusd.k12.ca.us. Thank you all.